Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes as people are starting to roll in here. All right, it's the top of the hour, 1 minute past, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and recognizing that there might be additional folks that join over the course of the next couple of minutes. But in the interest of time and the fact that today is a holiday, thank you to all of you for joining in spite of that. Really do appreciate it. We'll go ahead and kick this off. So today's webinar, we are going to talk about the Mid-Atlantic Regional Council on the Oceans project plan for the next 2 years as funded by the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. We're truly excited about the continued and new work that MARCO, as the Mid-Atlantic Regional Ocean Partnership, is able to advance with this funding. And we thank all of our partners, many of whom are on the line today, that helped develop the projects we'll be talking more about throughout this morning's presentation. Before we get going, I do want to review a few housekeeping items. Please do be mindful of your audio. Please keep your microphones on mute for the time being, just to avoid any background noise. There will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. Throughout the presentation, please feel free to enter any questions into the chat. And we'll do our best to get to as many as we can at the end of the slides, depending on how much time we have. Additionally, this webinar is being recorded, and it will be available on the MARCO website along with these slides shortly after the presentation concludes. Thanks again for joining, and here we go. So, to give a little bit of background on this funding, MARCO is among 4 regional ocean partnerships that were appropriated $56 million over a 5-year period from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law that was passed at the end of 2021. And we have been working really closely with NOAA, the Office of Coastal Management, on developing a project plan for implementing a kind of a 2-year period of this initial round of funding associated with that funding award. Additionally, we engaged all of the MACO work groups, the MARCO board, and other partners to develop the projects I'm going to be talking about in late spring 2022. So everything that you see here has been collaboratively developed by many different folks from many different organizations. And I did just want to link to more information. So NOAA did put out a more thorough description of all of the Regional Ocean Partnership Awards, and that's linked here in the slides. We can put that link in the chat. Please do feel free to take a look. It gives some really nice information about all of the awards that were disseminated for this first round of funding. So we have articulated 4 goals for this funding, but these goals really reflect the work that MARCO does overall. And they all work together too. They're not siloed, but they do have specific tasks and activities underneath each of these goals that I'll talk about in more detail over the course of this morning. But we wanted to kind of lay this out in one slide for you all, just to see generally this is the full picture of what the Mid-Atlantic Regional Council on the Ocean does. Many of you are familiar with this. You know, a strong focus for MARCO is on regional ocean planning. We do this in many ways through the Mid-Atlantic Committee on the Ocean. I'll talk a little bit about that more. We also convene several topic-specific work groups to help do some deep dives and engage other partners in issues of shared priority issues. We host the Mid-Atlantic Regional Data Portal, which is a really wonderful tool for those that may not be familiar with it. has thousands of different data layers that really help visualize the best available ocean and coastal spatial data out there. And then finally, this funding was just super critical to help us increase the capacity that is so needed for advancing all of the things that we've wanted to do for a number of years. We can't do that without having people on board to help us with this. So I'll talk a little bit more about how we're approaching that increased capacity. Here's the goals again, and this time with all of those specific tasks laid out underneath so you can just see how they all kind of work together, but also have their own individual metrics for success and different kind of specific activities that are associated with each goal. So I'll first talk about the Mid-Atlantic Committee on the Ocean. MARCO is a state-led regional ocean partnership whose board represents 5 coastal states from Virginia all the way up through New York. In recognition of the intersecting responsibilities for managing and using the ocean waters off the Mid-Atlantic coast, MARCO established the Mid-Atlantic Committee on the Ocean as a collaborative effort to build on the responsibilities and authorities of states, federal agencies, tribes, and the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council. So the MACO, as we affectionately call it, is this really wonderful opportunity for interjurisdictional and cross-agency coordination on a regular basis around many of these priority issues. MACO also oversees a bunch of topic-specific work groups. So these work groups create work plans and project reports that are reviewed by the MACO leadership committee, which is what we call the steering committee. And I'm going to talk about a couple of these, and now these are a little bit fluid, right? And there are sometimes more work groups here depending on a need. Sometimes work groups are added ad hoc. I actually will talk about one of those work groups right now that is new. So this is a little bit of an evolving space, but these are the work groups that we explicitly mentioned within our bipartisan infrastructure law funding, and that have projects that have been specifically funded under that work plan. So we're going to talk more about all of those projects under the marine debris work group, under our ocean acidification work group, which we do all of our ocean acidification work under the Mid-Atlantic Coastal Acidification Network, which is a collaborative effort that we co-host with Maricus, and has many different leaders in the ocean acidification space kind of sitting at the steering committee level for MACAN. We also do work around offshore wind, which I will talk about. And then we have a non-consumptive recreation work group as well that has a funded project under this. I did also want to mention that very recently, I think fall 2022, MACO established an ocean conservation work group, and some of the work that's funded under this work plan will eventually be housed under that working group of folks who have already done a lot of work to set a work plan and to kind of brainstorm the best way to talk about, ocean conservation needs for collaboration in the Mid-Atlantic. I mentioned earlier that we host the Mid-Atlantic Data Portal. Under this funding, we're able to do a bunch of data product enhancements that we'll talk about that have been on the docket for a really long time and have just needed resources and capacity to bring to fruition. These are things that we've heard from stakeholders that are a desired tool and information needs for planning. And so we're really excited to bring these to fruition. Additionally, we have some funding in there for portal operations and maintenance. There's a lot of technology infrastructure on the back end for the portal that's absolutely critical to keep it running as smoothly as it does. If you've ever gone to the portal, you'll see that it's just a really seamless way of visualizing ocean and coastal data. And the way that happens is by having a really robust technology infrastructure backing to it. So we've been able to fund a lot of that through this source as well, and we're very grateful for that. And we also do a lot of communications around the portal and data. We have Carl Villakova on the line who leads that effort, and he'll talk a little bit more about the portal and about the communication work around the portal, but it's just a really wonderful tool for all the things that we're talking about today. And then finally, as I mentioned, this this funding has allowed us the really necessary capacity increases to advance a robust work plan for over the next 2 years. So we've been able to retain and hire contractual staff for Marco. We are also going to be developing a 5-year work plan over the course of this year. And then finally, we have some funding for some communications enhancements that are absolutely needed, particularly for website refresh, revisions, making sure that the website is up to date and easy to update on a regular basis. So we've been able to fund that. So I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive in all of these projects. So here I'm going to talk about specific projects under the Mid-Atlantic Committee on the Ocean. Every year, the Mid-Atlantic Committee on the Ocean hosts an annual MACO Forum. This is a public event and is a really wonderful opportunity to bring everybody who's interested in ocean and coastal management together to talk about these priority issues, to provide feedback on what MACO is doing, and to share new research and activities in this space. This year's forum is, and I should have put this in the slide, but we can link this in the chat. This year's forum is May 17th and 18th. It's going to be in New York City at the Alexander Hamilton House, I think is what it's called. And we're really excited to see everybody for the first time in 4 years. We've had to do virtual forums because of COVID, and now we're finally able to bring this back in person. It will have a virtual option, so it's sort of a hybrid approach. So if you're not able to attend in person, you'll be able to view most of the discussion virtually, but certainly there's a lot of advantage to seeing everybody that you probably talk to on Zoom all the time in person. We are also, MACO actually in 2021 initiated the development of a diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and accessibility statement and commitment list that is on the Marco website. You can view it there. We really want to take that to the next level and be able to expand upon those commitments that we've made, make sure that we are fully understanding what are the success metrics under all of those commitments and how are we approaching those in a way that is the most effective. As part of this bipartisan infrastructure funding, we are going to be providing racial equity training opportunities, particularly for MACO members, workshops around racial equity, and also working with a consultant to refine those DEIJA vision and goals and make sure that these are things that can be reflected within the 5-year work plan for Marco and really have some tangible actions behind them. We are also going to be expanding tribal participation and representation in ocean planning, conducting. We recognize that right now we have the Shinnecock Nation on the MACO Steering Committee, which has been a wonderful partner in regional ocean planning for a number of years. That said, there are also many new federally recognized tribes in the Mid-Atlantic region, particularly in the state of Virginia. There are also a bunch of state recognized tribes that we have not talked to in quite some time. So we do recognize that we need to kind of start from the beginning here to some degree and build on some work that other agencies have done. NOAA has done a lot of work, for example, on kind of capturing tribal interests and needs related to ocean and coastal management in the Mid-Atlantic. And we want to build on that and make sure that we are in contact with the right people, that we have a full understanding of where tribal interests are and how we can best build upon that in our future work. So here's a list of kind of specific things that we're doing. We're seeking a contractor to help with this and really kind of doing some one-on-one outreach, getting a contact list, and then hosting some listening sessions that will be focused on a number of different priority issues that MACO is addressing already, and possibly new ones as well. So these are all things that are happening between now and the end of this funding period. We are Also, this is the new work group that I wanted to talk about. The Ocean Conservation Work Group is new as of fall 2022. We are pulling together a group of people to talk about ocean conservation advances and needs in the Mid-Atlantic region, including but not limited to the Hudson Canyon National Marine Sanctuary pre-designation process that's ongoing, and beyond. So one of the things that we have funded within this work plan is an ocean conservation symposium, where we can really get into the nitty-gritty of what's needed here and bring the right people together. So we've already convened the collaborative work group. They're working away at their work plan, which you can find on the MARCO website. And that is currently led by Kevin Hassel and Laura McKay from New Jersey and Virginia, respectively. So thank you for your work there. All right, so now I'm going to get into talking about our working groups. As I mentioned, MARCO does all of its work around ocean and coastal acidification through the Mid-Atlantic Coastal Acidification Network. And we have a number of projects that have been developed by the MACAN Steering Committee, which is comprised of truly premier, the leading researchers in ocean and coastal acidification in the Mid-Atlantic, along with industry members, federal agency representatives, and folks from states. They all came up with this list of projects here that you see. And I'm really excited also to announce publicly that Dr. Janet Reamer, she's joined us today. She is leading MACAN now. She will be the co-coordinator of MACAN on behalf of MARCO. She comes to us with a really robust set of experience in ocean and coastal acidification. She's has been leading the Southeast Coastal Acidification Network for quite some time. So Janet, we're really happy to have you. And anything that I miss when I talk about MACAN, please do feel free to jump in and emphasize anything or fill in the gaps. But the first project that we wanted to talk about today was identifying ocean and coastal acidification monitoring opportunities and gaps. And this is really in support of creating a regional monitoring network for ocean and coastal acidification. It's going to be looking at where's monitoring happening, what are the metrics that people are analyzing, and are there additional needs for other monitoring networks? Are there priority areas for monitoring projects in the region? The idea is that we can expand on and enhance the existing ocean and coastal acidification monitoring layers that are on the portal right now. All of that information is kind of, it's great to view, but it's also, I think, from 2017 and before. So we really want to update that through this effort. And that project is ongoing right now. We're also going to be doing an ocean acidification hotspot analysis, and this is building off of some of the work that Dr. Grace Saba out of Rutgers University has been doing with the Fishery Management Councils, but really taking a look at where are the high-risk areas in the Mid-Atlantic for ocean acidification, both spatially and temporally, and at varying depths. So that's going to be a lot of work. It's a lot of data analysis, but we have some really good folks at the table to help lead this work. The stakeholder engagement piece of this work plan is kind of MACAN's bread and butter, to be honest with you. We do an annual webinar series. We've been doing this since MACAN's inception. It's a really wonderful way to keep up to speed with new and planned research and data collection efforts in ocean and coastal acidification. We just had a webinar actually about carbon dioxide removal, and it's just super interesting, kind of novel technologies that are being deployed, novel research themes that are being considered and worked on that we talk about on an annual basis through this webinar series. So they're all posted, they're all recorded and posted to the MACAN website. I do encourage you to take a look at that if you have an interest. The other really exciting project that we are taking on, we've heard from stakeholders that actually folks at the high school and college level are really interested in ocean and coastal acidification in the Mid-Atlantic. They want to learn more about it. And we think a really great way to do that is to have an engaging educational video series that's tailored for that audience. So we're going to be working to develop that, and that's sort of in line with some great work that the Alaska Can, for example, has already done. They've produced some really wonderful visuals on teaching people about what ocean and coastal acidification is. And it's really important to kind of think about this at the mid-Atlantic level, since what we're dealing with here is very different than maybe what folks are dealing with out west. So kind of taking that and like bringing it to the mid-Atlantic geography is really great. We are also going to be developing a workforce career mentorship program through MACAN. This is really leveraging the steering committee that I talked about and all of the wonderful professionals in this space that are a part of that steering committee and could provide mentorship to folks, especially from under-resourced or overburdened communities. So we are going to be developing this mentorship program, and it will be geared toward getting students interested in ocean and coastal acidification who are from under-resourced communities or historically under-resourced communities. So this is a really exciting step forward and way to kind of provide that mentorship connection to folks that may not have it already. And then finally, we're going to continue hosting a biannual ocean and coastal acidification regional state of the science. We do this every other year. We're excited that this year we'll likely be able to be in person again after so many years of being virtual. Finally, the last thing I wanted to say about MACAN, and then I can pass it to Janet to fill in any gaps, is that this is an effort that is co-coordinated, co-hosted between Marco and Maricus. It's a really wonderful example of how we work together with our regional IUS association. Janet, anything I missed with MACAN? You may be on mute.
Okay, sorry, you had to unmute me. I'm just really excited to be working with MACAN, and I will also just say that I think the only thing that kind of got overlooked a little bit was that MACAN is really excited to be partnering even more now with the other coastal acidification networks on the East Coast, because it's very important that we address issues that kind of occur outside of our region because water moves. So part of our not new work plan, but kind of an expanded work plan over the next few years will include even more collaboration with the Southeast Ocean and Coastal Acidification Network, the Northeast Coastal Acidification Network, and the Gulf of Mexico Coastal Acidification Network. So stay tuned for that. And if you want to receive more information about MACAN and the work that we do, please let us know. You can either email info@midatlanticocean.org and ask to be put on our email list, or you can drop your email in the chat. But other than that, Avalon, you hit all of the right buttons. Thanks.
Thanks, Janet. Really excited to have you on board. Excellent. So moving into talking about our work around offshore wind, the MACO work group is called the Offshore Wind Regional Collaboration, and they've been focused a lot lately on looking at offshore wind transmission planning, and throughout the course of last year, there was an offshore wind transmission subcommittee that was working to identify challenges and opportunities for energy transmission planning in offshore areas, and what are some data needs that could be filled, either like low-hanging fruit data needs that could be easily filled by existing data added to the portal, or things that we will need to kind of pursue in the longer term. We're building on that work and building on work that was done by NROC and Marco in 2021 by hosting a transmission webinar and workshop series this year. This will kick off at the MACO Forum with two transmission sessions that will be happening on day one of the forum, and then we will be having an in-person meeting in the fall to kind of do a deeper dive on some of these topics. And we're really going to be looking at where are states and federal agencies right now in transmission planning? What are the studies that are ongoing? There are several studies. For example, there's a DOE Atlantic transmission study. The results will be forthcoming over the next couple of months. And so really kind of bringing some of those themes and concepts, highlighting those to the MACO audience is the goal here. Also taking a look at things like community benefit agreements and other topics like that. So I'm excited to kind of bring that transmission work to bear here over the next year. We are also, we've been working on fisheries outreach and enhancing the fisheries data on the portal for a number of years using regional data sharing funds, and we're continuing to build on that work. Marco recognizes that we need some additional focus, outreach, and engagement to the commercial and recreational fishing community in the Mid-Atlantic. And so we have hired, we're working with Monmouth University and their new fellow, Jay Odell. Many of you may be familiar with Jay, to help us with fisheries outreach. He's really an expert in the data portal. He's an expert in all things fisheries. So we're really excited to be working with Jay and to bring his expertise to the table here for helping us expand our engagement with the fishing community. And then finally, this is not something that that we're funding through the BIL funds, but I do want to just mention this is a really big part of what we do, and we're kind of leveraging the results from efforts at the Regional Wildlife Science Collaborative and much of the work that we're doing here, especially related to offshore wind. That is a collaborative that is co-hosted with the Northeast Regional Ocean Council and NROC, and it covers the full East Coast, the full Atlantic coast of the US, and looking at research and research needs around offshore wind and wildlife. And it's a really productive organization that's doing a lot right now. There is a science plan that has been under development for over a year that we anticipate will be out in the middle part of 2023. And we're really excited to see that and be able to kind of leverage the work that's articulated within that science plan for future opportunities with regional collaboration around offshore wind. So I just think that's an important project to mention, and it does play a strong role in all of the work that we do. All right, our marine debris work group, this is led by Laura McKay in Virginia. And the marine debris work group has been doing a ton around community-based social marketing at the regional level over the past couple of years. We've been focusing mostly on balloon release reduction and kind of changing behavior around mass balloon releases. We had a grant from the NOAA Marine Debris Program that's wrapping up at the end of this month to develop and implement a regional community-based social marketing campaign. And we worked with the person that wrote the book on CBSM, Dr. Doug Mackenzie Moore, to kind of develop this program. And we're really excited about where it landed. And there are other presentations that I can give about that project specifically, but for the purposes of this presentation and what we're doing for the next 2 years, I just wanted to mention that we're building on that work by applying community-based social marketing to other debris types. So we fortunately, through that funding that we got from the Marine Debris Program, we were able to conduct biennial monitoring on 1 mile stretches of beach in all 5 states. That means 2 times a year, the state staff would go out and collect debris and log the debris they were finding on the same 1 mile stretch of beach. It's really wonderful data and information that we have now that can help inform priorities for this work group moving forward. So what are we seeing a lot of on Mid-Atlantic beaches in terms of debris? And we can also leverage other debris collection programs like the International Coastal Cleanup efforts and things like that to get a better sense of this. But one of the things that the working group has already identified as a priority is single-use plastic water bottles. And so we'll be doing some community-based social marketing barriers research to determine, what are the barriers toward people no longer using single-use plastic water bottles. We are also, in kind of that same vein, going to be building, or are currently building, capacity for waterfront recreational zones throughout the Mid-Atlantic region to put in clean water bottle refill stations. I think especially after COVID, we are hearing from communities that folks are sort of reluctant to use water fountains that you have to put your mouth toward. So they have now water refill stations you can just stick your water bottle under and the water fill and it gets filled up. And it's a way to sort of encourage use of reusable water bottles if folks know that when they're going to the beach or other waterfront recreational zones, they will have an opportunity to fill a water bottle up rather than bringing a full cooler of single-use plastic water bottles. So we're working with 20 different locations right now to provide supplies that they'll need for those water bottle refill stations, and they are going to be providing the installation and the follow-up surveys and things like that in kind. So really excited about that project. I think it's a really tangible step forward for reducing or for increasing the use of reusable water bottles. There have also been a number of marine debris related policies in the Mid-Atlantic that have been passed across all 5 Mid-Atlantic states over the past couple of years. And the work group wants to understand what are some lessons learned from those policies and what's the public perception of those policies, like the plastic bag bans and styrofoam bans, things like that. So kind of taking stock of what those policies are and how effective they are is, from a public perception standpoint, is one of the projects that we will be moving forward with over the next 2 years. And then finally, the work group does host a biannual regional marine debris summit. This is a really wonderful opportunity to get folks there. There's just a lot of people doing really great work in the marine debris space in the Mid-Atlantic. Much of that is captured in the NOAA Marine Debris Program's Mid-Atlantic Marine Debris Action Plan. You can view that. It's super robust. It kind of talks about all of the different marine debris efforts in the region and needs for moving forward and metrics around success, but we can kind of bring all of these folks together and other partners from across the nation who are doing really great work that we could maybe learn from, can bring them all together in a summit. And they're usually really fascinating topics that we can cover around microplastics, microfibers, things that the work group is kind of working on tangentially, but doesn't have a focused project on. We can really do deep dives on some of those at the summit level and get a sense of what should be put into the work plan moving forward for the work group. So it's a really nice way of informing the work that we do. Okay. Our non-consumptive recreation work group for the past couple of years has been compiling state level information around minimizing interactions with wildlife during non-consumptive recreation activities like stand-up paddleboarding, hiking, bird watching, anything that is kind of a recreational activity that doesn't involve consuming anything. So not fishing, for example. And so we have this really nice database of all of the guidance that the states and other agencies have put out around minimizing wildlife interactions, but we need to make it into a format that is more usable by the general public. Concurrently, we've been talking with Maricus about their desire to create an application or some sort of usable, public-friendly tool to help inform people on conditions at the beach, for example, before they go out and recreate. And so we envision that this project is going to be another collaboration between Marco and Maricus in creating a user-friendly phone application that people can download that would show kind of the gamut of here's what you can expect from your day at the beach. Here's some wildlife that you might encounter and how to minimize those unhealthy interactions with wildlife. So we're really excited about that project, and it will be kicked off soon. Okay. I am now going to be able to give my voice a break and hand it over to Carl, who is the portal, who is our Mid-Atlantic portal manager. And he's going to talk about some of the projects that we are going to be doing with the portal over the next couple of years. Carl, take it away.
Thanks, Avalon. A well-deserved break. And can you hear me okay? All right. Well, I'll first mention that we have posted on the Marco website, and I'll add a link to this in the chat in a few minutes, the 2023 work plan for the Mid-Atlantic Ocean Data Portal, which is a comprehensive look at all the things that we're going to be working on for the next year or two ahead, from data additions to tool enhancements to communications and outreach plans. But just to give you a bit of a sample of some of those things, the commercial fishing data we have over the last couple of years, I say we, Marco, has worked in partnership with NROC and the Responsible Offshore Development Alliance, or RODA, to gather input from the commercial fishing stakeholders in the region to get a sense of what we can do on the portal to better represent fishing activity. And we continue to advance on some of those recommendations, including incorporating NOAA fishing footprint data, which are based on vessel trip reports, adding regular updates to our vessel monitoring system maps, which are basically electronically tracked representations of fishing vessel activities and patterns. They're current up to about 2019 right now, so we'd like to advance that. Our communities at sea, currently those data sets run from 1996 through 2015, so they're a high priority to get them more current, and reorganizing our various fishery products by fishery instead of the current organization, which will make that a bit more intuitive for people to sift through. Lots of things coming up on the marine life data front, including our cetacean data for species. We currently have monthly cetacean data. We are going to be doubling the resolution of those, and for our avian models, expanding on them where they're currently shown by season to also monthly now. We are also going to be replacing the sea turtle maps that we have on the portal, which are some of the oldest and frankly lowest resolution data that we have. So we look forward to replacing that. I know it's a very high interest. Next slide. In addition to the data enhancements, there's always a lot of work going on the back end and the front end. We are looking at this BIL funding as a real opportunity to make some changes on the data management system side to bring the portal's system up to speed, which will unlock a lot of capabilities to simplify the organization of data layers, including getting rid of the search widgets that you currently have to use to find some of our marine life species and the communities at sea by port data. We hope to migrate our data catalog to a newer, much easier to use and search system. We're looking likely at CCAN, which is the same open source system that data.gov uses, but we're continuing to evaluate that and other options. And we'll be making a lot of tool upgrades that people have been requesting for some time. Edits to bookmarks, the ability to change the color schemes for shapes that people create, things like that. Of course, we are very active on the outreach side, doing portal trainings for stakeholders from a wide range, including work groups that are out there, state and government agencies, and even schools. We continue to see a lot of interest that we love from classrooms from middle to high school to college and university teachers. So if anyone is ever interested in us doing a training that can be tailored to your needs, we are open to that, and you can always reach out to us. And I will stop there and hold questions till the end, I suppose.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Carl. And this is really, especially on the previous slide, where we talk about some of the updates to the data layers, especially around marine life. This is where it's been really valuable to have RWSC helping inform where there are available updates to the models that are using to inform these layers. So just wanted to highlight that. And I think I missed one slide. Okay, here we go. So now we're getting to my favorite part, which is increasing capacity for Marco. So really very grateful for this funding that has allowed us to support existing Marco core team, contract staff, and then also hire new contract staff to do much of the work, to help with much of the work that you could see that what we laid out is a pretty robust work plan. There's a lot to do, and we need people at the table to help do it. And so you've already met Janet Reamer, who's leading our ocean and coastal acidification work. She's also going to be taking on much of our offshore wind portfolio and possibly some of the ocean conservation work that's coming down the pike as well, among other things. We also have September Marr, who is our outreach coordinator. She will be helping with all of the meeting planning support, much of the outreach activity that we do across all of the working groups. We really envision September to be kind of plugged in at many of the working group level scales, because there's outreach needs for all of that work that we just talked about. And she's also going to really be taking the lead on our communications. We have a quarterly newsletter that comes out, and please do visit the website to join the mailing list if you're not already on there. I'm assuming you're on there if you learned about this website, this webinar, but if you're not, please join, and you'll get kind of quarterly updates on progress on all of these projects that we're talking about today. And September is really going to be helping take the lead on all of that. So September, super happy to have you here, and thank you for being a part of the Marco core team. We also have another position, the project manager position, and we will be announcing the incumbent for that shortly. And we're, I think, in pretty good shape to move this work plan forward with a full team of people helping out. So my contact information is on the next slide. You can feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have questions as well. Or info@midatlanticocean.org is another option too. The other kind of piece of this, increasing capacity and enhancing communications, we are developing a 5-year work plan for Marco over the course of this year, and kind of taking into account different priorities that the Marco Management Board has identified as wanting to move forward and further scope, further continue many of these. I mean, the idea behind these projects that we've articulated today is that these are forming a really strong foundation, a needed foundation for regional ocean and coastal management moving forward. And so these need to be kind of ongoing projects and be built upon. And these are essentially programs that we're building right now that are going to be really critical for informing a lot of really important work moving forward, especially in light of things like climate change and increasing use offshore. And then finally, in terms of enhancing communications, just like I said before, refreshing the website and graphics and things like that to just get us kind of more up to date and make updating all of our information a lot easier and seamless, and make it easier for you all as people who are interested in the work that we're doing to find out about the work that we're doing and get progress updates and all that. Like I said, and here's our dump of all of the logos that we have of all the many different committees that we are hosting and advancing through our work. Please don't hesitate to send questions to me. You can give me a call or a text, or you can email me anytime. You can also email info@midatlanticocean.org, as I mentioned before as well. So with that, we can go ahead and open it up to questions. I think we have a pretty small group of people on today, so please do feel free to raise your hand, or you can enter questions into the chat, and I will go through also and see if I can see any questions that have come in already. So I do see a question already, and I'll just go ahead and address that now. The question is, are you engaging Indigenous communities in the offshore wind conversation? And yes, I wanted to call out that the Mako Forum is happening in the next couple of weeks, May 17th and 18th. There will be an offshore wind focused discussion at the forum, and we do encourage any stakeholder that can participate to come and be a part of that conversation. Any partner and stakeholder community member are welcome to join. And so in that setting, we can certainly engage anybody who's interested in the offshore wind discussion. I think tribes are also Mako members, and so are absolutely open to joining the offshore wind regional collaboration to have more robust ongoing conversations with other Mako members like federal agencies, states, the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council, so on and so forth. So this is definitely something that we do realize needs to be increased, though. So this is part of the Mako tribal project that I talked about in one of my earlier slides, which is, doing some of this one-on-one outreach and really getting a better sense of where folks' interest lies, particularly around topics like offshore wind, but other topics as well. So I'm happy to expand on that further if you would like. But yes, it's a big goal of ours to make sure we have a better, more full understanding of where tribal interests are and how different tribes may want to engage, because it also will be different depending on the tribe. I also invite any member from the Mako Steering Committee or other leadership from Marco to join in and say anything you might want to say or emphasize around any of this work. Happy to have that insight here too. Okay. I don't.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Hi.
I was trying to raise my hand and couldn't figure out how to. This is Mary Ford from Maricus. I just wanted to emphasize how excited we are to work on all of these projects with Marco, and the continuing relationship is just really incredible. And we're so supportive to all of our partners throughout the region. So thankful for all of our supportive partners throughout the region, and excited to see what the next couple of years bring, because there's a lot of really exciting stuff going on in the Mid-Atlantic. And Avalon, I think you and your team did a great job of displaying all of that today. So we're just really excited and wanted to emphasize that to the group.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, I see another question coming into the chat. It says, done right, ocean farming is part of the solution for climate change. What is being done to support science-based education and outreach surrounding responsible ocean farming? That's a great question, Donna, and thank you for asking it. I think that for right now, ocean farming and aquaculture has been a topic that has appeared in the 2016 Ocean Action Plan for the Mid-Atlantic region. It's something that we've talked about at the Mako forums. I would say that it's something that we can certainly consider as part of the 5-year work plan for Marco, and it's something that kind of is not currently in the list of working groups or other topics that we are addressing kind of at that working group level at this time, but certainly something that we can consider, and definitely a valuable input that you've provided. So thank you. And if there's anybody else on the line that wants to talk more about that, please feel free. But that's what I would say. Okay. Well, with that, if I don't see any other questions coming in, but again, please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you think of something later. Thank you again for joining today, and we look forward to working with all of you over the next couple of years as we move this important work forward. So thank you.